Let me ask you a question. If inflation stays up, what's going to happen to home prices? What do you think is going to happen? Let's think about this. Let's work through this. There's an article recently published that kind of goes over a few different scenarios. And I just want you to be aware, because if you're thinking about buying a home or maybe selling a home or maybe buying investment property, this all affects you. Whether you're taking a loan or whether you're buying something cash, you definitely want to know what could happen under different scenarios and track this kind of stuff, you know? We start off by just talking about the unemployment rate. This is a very important metric. It's currently at 3.9%, which is relatively low. It's tracked by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So, you know, this is the best data that we have. But the Fed has a target for inflation to be, you know, around 2%, and it's currently coming in at 3.5%. Now that's almost double. That is not a good sign. Unfortunately, the metrics are not where the Fed wants to see them. So we have, you know, plenty of jobs and people are working. However, inflation is above the 2.0% target that they have, and that is no bueno. So what is the federal government doing to fight this? Is they increase interest rates. And here's the first factor that is affecting your purchasing power on a home. Not just yours, but everybody's purchasing power, unless you're cash. That might make a little difference. If you're getting a home loan, you're going to pay about 7.25 to 7.5% interest rate right now. And the reason why the rates are elevated is because by elevating rates, the Fed fights inflation. There is less expansion in the business world. There's less loans being taken, and this helps shrink the money supply. Because as you know, the money supply went out of control with all the money printing that happened, and now we're dealing with the repercussions of that entire process. And by the way, my name is Machek Zaremba. I'm a real estate agent in Sarasota, Florida. If you have any questions about anything, drop me a line. All my contact info is below. I also invest in real estate, so maybe you have a question about that. I sell in the entire state of Florida, so whatever area you're asking about, let me know and I'll be glad to answer any questions you send my way. So now, as interest rates are high, 7.5% is relatively high for the last 20 years. You know, last time we had that kind of interest rate was when I first bought my first property, which was in 2002. That's over 22 years ago. And what usually happens is that prices start falling when we have higher interest rates, because there's less buyers out there. And there's less buyers because there's less people that can qualify for mortgages. But because the labor market is looking really good and people have jobs, and a lot of people have 2 jobs, and a lot of households have 3 or 4 jobs, well, people can still afford to buy homes. At the current interest rates, about 25% of Americans can afford to buy a home, you know, at the 7.5 rate with today's prices. But what about the other 75%? Well, there's a big portion that rents, and there's another giant portion that purchased a long time ago. And they have a lot of equity in their home, and they also have a very low interest payment, and the payment generally on the whole house is much lower than if they were to buy a new home today. In fact, even the 25% that can afford, not many of them are buying because they're going to be upgrading their payment. And who wants to upgrade payments? Like literally nobody. So prices have to fall in order for more people to start buying homes. That's the bottom line. But unfortunately, the federal government and a lot of corporations have this plan where they're not going to make prices fall. Now, I actually think that inevitably they will fall. Eventually they will fall. But you know, it could be another 5, 10, 20 years. We don't know how long they're going to keep pushing the problem down the road. You know, they keep kicking that rock further and further and further, and that just compounds everything, makes it a lot worse. It's just better to cause a crash right now and have the short-term pain in order to have a lot more long-term gain. And look, I would lose a lot. I am one to be in a position where I would lose a lot in that situation. But you know what? I kind of feel like, why keep dragging it out? Let's just get it over with. So now, if you're thinking about buying a home, let's get back to that conversation. You need to be paying attention to inventory levels. This is the reason why prices haven't fallen. Interest rates have increased, buyers have decreased, but prices seem to stay the same. In fact, they've actually increased nationwide by about 4% in 2023. Now in Florida, the inventory is rising, and the prices did decrease just slightly, but on a national level, they went up. So I guess it depends where you're trying to buy a home. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm walking at the celery fields. If you look behind me, there's a little hill right back there, and also has some nice paths. I'm just walking on the flat ground. That's why there's a lot of wind here. Sorry if you're hearing a lot of wind noise. This is located in Sarasota, Florida. Just look up the celery fields. It's a cool place to come. Now, the new home builders are really benefiting from this entire scenario that's happening. Let me tell you what they're doing, and this is not a bad idea if you want to buy a home. First of all, who doesn't love a brand new home? Never lived in, everything is modern, brand new, and also you're in a community that feels fresh and everyone's just excited to be there. There's no crotchety old people that, you know, have lived there 30 years and hate the neighbor across the street and all that stuff. So the new construction builders are really benefiting because what they're able to do is they're able to do a lot of things to incentivize you to buy houses from them. You see, they're not competing with too many resale homes. The resale home inventory is too low for them to compete. Right now, about 1/3 of every single house sold in the US is a new construction home. So what the heck are they doing to get 1/3 of all the sales? Here's what they're doing. First of all, they're buying down interest rates. I know a couple communities locally that you can get a 4.75% interest rate. Second of all, I know a builder that has a 5% commission rate for bringing a buyer. Listen, we barely get 3, so 5 is really good, and a lot of agents will bring and show the clients the new construction communities, even if they're looking for something different, just to show them some options. And sometimes people fall in love. You know, the new construction is so beautiful, staged really well, and then the numbers start making sense, where you're getting a big home, you're getting lots and lots of upgrades, you're getting an amazing interest rate, and basically you're buying a more expensive home because you're qualifying for more money because the interest rate is lower. So the same payment will actually get you a bigger house or a more expensive house. So you kind of feel good about that. And you feel like it's a good deal. So if you're thinking about buying, this may be something you should consider. You should see which builders out there are offering some incentives to their buyers. They always give you closing costs too. They pay for so many of your closing costs as long as you use their lender and you use their title company. And now we have to get into what is it going to take for interest rates to come down, because you're probably waiting, right? You're probably just waiting for that 5.5% interest rate, and that's going to be the good one. Even though you can get a 4.75 with new construction, you're going to wait for something different, right? Well, let me tell you what's going to happen. If, in this example, we keep our inventory levels exactly the same as they are today, however many homes we have for sale, that is exactly how many we're going to have. And let's just say the interest rates drop. A lot of people, a lot of buyers are going to come out of the woodwork and they're going to say, dang, I'm buying a house. And we're going to have less inventory than we do right now. We're already in an inventory shortage, but we're going to have even less. What is that going to create? Price increases, exactly like, you know, when the pandemic hit and everyone started buying houses because interest rates were at 3%. Exact same thing is going to happen again. And where are you going to be in that process? Are you going to be the one that has a loan and you're not going to be able to buy anything because all the cash buyers are outbidding you and making no inspection contingencies or waiving an appraisal contingency? I mean, there are so many problems that come out of this kind of hectic, you know, fear of missing out feeling. Don't wait on the sidelines. I'm telling you, I know I'm an agent and I'm like completely biased to say, go buy a home, okay? And look, buying a home is not for everyone, but it is the best investment you can make, because if it's not buying a home, it's paying rent and helping landlords like me get richer. Okay, that's what you're gonna do. You're gonna help landlords get rich, because all they're gonna do is keep bumping up the rate to fair market value, and everything gets more expensive because we have inflation and everything gets more expensive. So now you're paying fair market value, which is more than you did last year and more than the year before. And next thing you know, 5 years has gone gone by, 10 years has gone by, you still don't own a home, and then you're just living a life full of regrets. But all you were doing is waiting for the 5.5% interest rate. Let me ask you something. Are you actually thinking that the Fed is going to deliberately crash the market? I don't. I think there's going to be a natural event, or there's going to be a war or something like that that causes serious problems, and maybe then no one is going to be buying houses and everyone's going to be afraid, and you will too. And you're not going to buy a house when it's going to be the best time to buy a house. But right now you're just renting, helping landlords make some money, helping giant companies that built apartment complexes make more money, and now you're just going to complain that you never bought a house, and one day you'll be old and gray with no assets. If you need a house, buy a house. It doesn't matter what kind of house it is. It could be a crappy ass little house. It doesn't matter. It could be a condo, it could be a vacant piece of land, and bring an RV. It doesn't matter. Stop paying landlords all the money just to rent a property. But let's just say you're totally convinced that you should be renting and not buying just yet because it's a lot cheaper to rent. And indeed, it is a lot cheaper to rent, okay? In my area, you're gonna have a mortgage of at least $3,200, and you could probably rent that same thing for $2,200 and then not have any obligations on any repairs. So it makes sense, $1,000 every single month. Let's call it $500, that's $6,000 per year. And you're saving that, and you have no headaches. If something breaks, you call the landlord and they're supposed to fix it. I mean, check your laws, so they're pretty much supposed to fix most things. So you're justifying not buying a home because interest rates are high and it's cheaper to rent, but it's not yours. And that landlord can give you, in Florida, a 15-day notice of non-renewal, and you are out if you're in a month-to-month lease. You gotta hustle and bustle and move, find a place, and it's probably gonna be more expensive. Now there's a lot of multifamily being built, so now there's more competition for rentals, and once again, rental prices will keep going down. In the next 2 years, we have so many multifamily buildings being completed that we're gonna have an oversupply of multifamily, which, by the way, is an opportunity if you wanna invest in multifamily. And I'm not talking about duplexes or triplexes. I'm talking about 60 units, 200 units, things like that, where you kind of need, 20 million, 30 million, 50 million to purchase. There are going to be opportunities because a lot of builders, or even a lot of existing buildings, are going to be competing with brand new construction, with crazy move-in specials, and rates are going to come down. And then it's even less desirable to purchase a home because if the interest rates haven't dropped, the payment is going to stay high, but the rent payments are going to keep going down, and eventually there'll be an equilibrium with the prices of the supply and demand in your area. Now, if interest rates stay the same, or if interest rates go up and all of the multifamily completion finishes, then we might have one of two scenarios. We're either going to have prices stay the same, or we're going to have price decreases, because it's just a matter of time before everybody who's out on the market decides to pull their listing or lower the price. I mean, it's either going to go under contract and sell, right? Or they pull the listing and they say, we're not going to sell until prices come back, which could be 5 or 10 years. Or they're going to lower the price. And that is the number one scenario that actually happens when I have a listing and someone wants to sell it or has to sell it. If it's not selling, then it's probably because of the price. I mean, we do great marketing, we have great photos, you can't change the location, and it's usually not worth upgrading the kitchen for $30,000 or $40,000, to make it look better. It's definitely not worth adding a pool. So pay attention to inventory. If you're a buyer, pay attention. Now let's talk about the perspective of a seller. So the sellers, I really do feel bad for. I'm sorry, I'm just delivering you the news and my opinion about it. But if you're a seller, you have so much competition out there. Even though our inventory is still at low levels historically, when it comes to how many buyers there are and how many listings there aren't many buyers. So you have too much inventory, and that's why things are not selling. Now, every month, I've been tracking this for a long time, things seem to get worse. There seems to be more and more inventory out there. Now, let's just look at it on a quarterly basis. Every quarter for the last almost 2 years, we have more inventory hitting the market. The only thing is, the reason why prices haven't fallen, they've actually increased 4%, is because we haven't had enough homes hit the market. Why is that? Because a lot of people are not willing to give up their 3.25% interest rate. Like me, I'm not giving up my 3.25% interest rate. I love that interest rate. It is such a good investment, and I love my home to keep living in it until I outgrow my home. And we need to really look at what's going to happen, which, look, I can't predict the future, but what if we keep getting bad reports and inflation does not go down to 2%, the target goal? Let's finish off with this thought. If they do not go down, the interest rates will go up. If the interest rates go up, you can afford less home. And then eventually there will be so much inventory hitting the market that people will lower the price. But I do not think that this is going to be anytime soon. I also think it's going to be a very painful endeavor, and there's going to be a lot of fear in the market. So if you're one of those people that's thinking about buying a home, but you're just waiting for that 5.5% interest rate, you're not going to feel good when it goes up to 8.5 from 7.5 right now. So you're probably not going to pull the trigger then. Or if it goes to 9.5, probably not going to pull the trigger then. But if it goes down to 5.5, let me tell you, you're not going to have any homes for sale that you like. The inventory is going to disappear. We need to see a large increase in inventory for the prices to start coming down, or we need to see a very large increase in interest rates to basically kill demand, because many people are already not buying because of this 7.5% interest rate. I have a client closing in 2 weeks. They locked in at 6.875. I couldn't believe it. Although they are putting 50% down payment, so that is a big down payment, and they're still such a low risk. But hey, the bank doesn't care. They have a risk tolerance that they have to do. They are the lowest level of risk tolerance, and they got a 6.875% rate. I also had a client who locked in today an investment loan, and they're getting 7.375, which is such a good deal on an investment loan. So if you were wondering what the rates could be, I have a link and a phone number to Chris Cavazos, who's my lender of choice, and he does the entire United States. He also does commercial loans. If you have any commercial questions, give him a call.